Today we're diving into one of the most important setup areas in DaVinci Resolve, preferences. We'll focus on three sections under the System tab: memory and GPU, media storage, and decode options. And I'll show you exactly which settings matter, which ones you can ignore, and how to set up everything for the best performance right from the start. The first thing we need to do is actually open the Preferences menu. Just head up to the top left of your screen and click on DaVinci Resolve in the menu bar. Then choose Preferences. The preference window will pop up, and this is where all of your core system and user settings live. Once the preference window is open, the very first section under the System tab is Memory and GPU. At the top, you'll see System Memory, and on my Mac Mini, Resolve shows 24 gigs of RAM. That's just the total physical memory in the computer. Right underneath are two sliders. The first slider is Limit Resolve Memory Usage. This tells Resolve how much RAM it's allowed to use. The second slider is Limit Fusion Memory Cache. Fusion is Resolve's compositing and effects workspace, and this controls how much RAM goes specifically to those effects. For most beginners, you don't need to tweak these numbers. The defaults that Resolve gives you are already optimized for smooth playback and stability. One pro tip is that RAM is absolutely critical for video editing. On Apple Silicon Macs, the memory is unified and you can't upgrade it later. So if you're buying a Mac for Resolve, always get as much RAM as you can afford. Right below the memory settings, you'll find the GPU configuration. The first option is GPU processing mode. If you're on a Mac, just leave it on auto. That way, Resolve uses Apple's Metal framework automatically, which is optimized for performance and efficiency. Next is the DaVinci Neural Engine processing option. This is Resolve's AI toolkit. It powers things like Smart Reframe, Speed Warp, Voice Isolation, and Magic Mask. On Apple Silicon Macs, the best option is the Apple Neural Engine. These chips have a dedicated neural engine built right in, and it's way faster than relying on the GPU alone. So if you want the best speed and efficiency for your AI features, pick the Apple Neural Engine. And finally, there's GPU selection. On Macs, Resolve will almost always default to auto here as well. And that's exactly what you want, because it tells Resolve to use the full GPU resources available. So the next section is media storage. These are the drives that Resolve uses for all of the behind-the-scenes stuff, such as gallery stills, cache files, and optimized media. Here's the key thing to remember. The first drive in the list is the most important. That's where Resolve puts everything. If the drive is not there, then it moves to the second drive on the list as a backup. On my setup, you can see that I've put my RAID 0 drive first, and then I've got my RAID 1, and the last thing that I have as a fallback is my system drive. If you'd like to see how I set up my DAS and RAIDs, I'll link it in the description below, and I'll also put a link up here in the corner. Next is a checkbox, and it's called Automatically Display Attached Storage Locations. If this is on, Resolve will add any drive you plug in to places like the media page inside of Resolve. Personally, I leave this on. It's just easier, especially if you move footage between different drives. And finally, the proxy generation location settings. This is where Resolve stores proxy files, those lower resolution versions of your clips that make editing smoother. You've got three choices here: proxy subfolders in media file locations, which saves proxies right next to your originals; use project settings, which follows whatever you've set in your project settings; and ask when creating, which gives you a choice every single time. For my workflow, I like to use project settings. It keeps everything consistent. And don't worry, I'll show you how to configure those settings in a separate video. And the last thing we'll cover in this video is the decode options. The first setting here is use GPU for Blackmagic Raw Decode. What this does is let Resolve use your GPU or Apple Silicon, the Metal back end and neural engine, to process Blackmagic Raw footage instead of just the CPU. On a Mac with Apple Silicon, you definitely want this one turned on. Next up is Decode H.264 or H.265 using hardware acceleration. These are super common formats, and Apple Silicon chips have dedicated hardware decoders built in, and Resolve can tap into those instead of leaning on the CPU. The result way better performance, and way less lag. Then there is Use Easy DCP Decoder. This one's for decoding digital cinema packages, the format used for theater projection. So unless you're preparing content for a theatrical delivery, you can safely leave this off. Next, you'll see automatically refresh growing files in the media pool. A growing file is basically a clip that's still being written to disk, like from a live broadcast recording. So if you're not editing live broadcasts or streams, you don't need this and you can safely leave it off. And then we have streaming files during download from Blackmagic Cloud. If you're working with Blackmagic Cloud projects, this option is awesome because it lets you start using the clips while they're still downloading, so no need to wait for the entire file to finish. If you're collaborating on the cloud, I would highly suggest that you keep this on. And finally, GPU for R3D Decode. This is for red footage, and you'll get 3 drop-down choices: none, debayer, or decompression and debayer. So if you're working with red on an Apple Silicon Mac, the best option is decompression and debayer. In the next video, we'll move on to video and audio I/O on the System tab in the Preferences menu. Be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.